Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Line Change, the NHL betting podcast from the Action Network, presented to you by our sponsors, BetMGM. My name is Michael Leboff. Joining me tonight is Nick Martin. This is your episode for Monday and Tuesday's game 3s and 4. We're recording Sunday night in the middle of Kraken and Dallas, but Seattle is running away with this one 4-0, or excuse me, 4-1 now in the second. We'll start with Vegas and Edmonton, game 3 on Monday night. It's the only game. The schedule starts to get less wonky after this one. We'll have 2 games on Tuesday, then 2 on Wednesday. Go from there. Quick little aside about this Knights and Oilers game. I keep talking about betting McDavid to score 2+ goals, and I bet it almost every game this playoffs. The 2 I haven't bet it have been the 2 he scored 2 goals in, so I'll probably just go back to that one and guarantee he doesn't. But for this game, for game 3, Edmonton is a pretty chunky favorite, -170 at home. Vegas +145, over under is 7. Aside from McDavid to score 2+ goals, Nick, anything you see here?
No, not really. It looks like Edmonton's definitely favored enough for me, I think. I agree, maybe McDavid, and I think you could probably try and pick out some of your favorite nights. I'll be interested in seeing where Marchessault's shot line is at. I really liked it the other game, and it honestly didn't. I mean, obviously, it was kind of still a bad game script for the Knights, and the fact that it was such a blowout for so long hurt it too. So I think that could be a shot prop I'm interested in. And a lot of the Knights, they've spent so much time. I was diving into this the other day. They've spent so much time leading this playoff that does change kind of where I think some of their best shooters numbers would be, just because the game scripts. So I think that's something to keep an eye on. As a side, it feels like that's a pretty big price on the Oilers. I mean, it was a very, very convincing game too, but I don't know if I want to go there or not. It does feel like I think a better way to kind of, when we talked last week, and I said we were talking about the zigzag theory in the NBA, and I was kind of thinking what I said about how I'm having a hard time settling into the back and forth and getting a read. And I feel like a better way to say what I was saying would be that in previous years, it's felt like there's so many series where there's one clear value side. Where like Montreal's whole playoff run, I was like, this team has
Yeah,
value every single game, pretty much.
like the Islanders too.
And
Just like
yeah, exactly, like same
the
year.
Islanders were an underdog every game in their play when they run to the Eastern Conference Final.
Yeah, and if they go
I think,
500, you're doing
yeah,
really, really good. And that's kind of, I think, a better way to say what I was kind of thinking in that
that's a good
episode.
point.
And this feels like one of those maybe where this series, I'm not sure. I have a feel for like who's really the side holding value at all. It kind of feels like I'm just trying to, pick off the spot more so.
Yeah. One thing that's interesting about Edmonton and the price, right? Like they are 5-3 in the playoffs. And it feels like every win has just been like a huge statement win. The last one, like they blow out Vegas. They were up 4-0 before the game started, basically. You go to those Kings games when they won 3 in a row to close it out. They came back from 3, and then they just were just sensational in their clincher. And it feels like that kind of stuff is happening every time they win. Leon Draisaitl is unplayable at the moment. So I feel like every time they win, everyone kind of gets carried away a little bit, and you'll see that seep into the market. So I would be kind of closer to Vegas here. I want to see where this number closes. But I think I'm going to bet McDavid to score 2+. And one other thing I want to, because I just want to ask you basically is, with the way this series in Florida and Toronto's going, that means that Matthew Tkachuk, and we talked about how when Florida was down 3-2 to the Bruins, like just buy his Conn Smythe as a whatever, and just in case the crazy stuff happens. And so far, it's looking like it might. But now I'm really scared that Florida gets to the Stanley Cup, wins the Stanley Cup, and Leon Draisaitl
Still does it. Yeah, I
And
mean,
I'm
if
gonna
he
say
breaks
something
the
that's
all-time
crazy.
goals,
I'm gonna say something that's crazy. He might set some records before the end. Like if they win this round and then go to the next round. Let's say next round they play Dallas and it goes 7. Like he might have all the records done, and they lose that series. And I'm like, there's no way they could give it to someone who doesn't make the Stanley Cup final, right? But that's how good he's been. Then I'm still thinking like
that would be insanity. I mean,
if he
McDavid made a case last year, but not this kind of case.
so
The
what
other thing, though, to talk about Draisaitl's goal scoring, and it's an interesting note because everyone's going to bet it tomorrow. Like
yeah
Draisaitl to score in 2 goals will be the most popular bets, which is reasonable. He's going bananas. But at what point, too, like, I don't think anyone really wants to say it, but the puck luck is pretty insane. Look at how many of these, how often, and he's smart, like, he's going to a lot of good areas, but how many do you see? How often do you ever see any NHL player ever just find themselves in a situation where they're just tapping them in like this? For even as good as Draisaitl's been, if you watch how many of them are just like both goals last game, the one hits shin pads, drops on a stick, gets it in, which is great. He's out front of the net, obviously, but like a lot of good goal scorers do that, right? And it doesn't just find them like this. And then the second goal is pretty nice play, and he had a really good sequence where Yamamoto missed the net, goes behind the net, passes out front to Dry, and the goalie's down because of Hyman, and he puts it in. So I think he's been insane, but it's also kind of interesting from a note of like it has been a pretty ridiculous run of like you just don't see guys find goals this easy. So I think it's a bit of both where like he is completely dominating, but at some point I feel like you'd think it's not going to be this casual, but who knows? And then last note on that hypothetical, not that it really matters, but I think a healthy Edmonton is a horrible matchup for Florida. I was pretty wrong on this Toronto series, obviously, but I feel like even more so it's hard for me to see the transition game of the Oilers not really getting to the Panthers, but who knows?
yeah. Well, we'll see. And the other thing I'll just note on that kind of situation, if we do before we move on, is let's say Edmonton gets eliminated in the conference final. Do you think that is the time to maybe put a punt in on Draisaitl? Because like
That would
I
be
wonder,
wild.
I wonder
Well,
what they
I'd be
put.
interested in seeing like
Just
how many
what?
convincing cases are left
Yeah,
though. It's
exactly.
like
Like so, like if
the
it's
Chuck Stace is
Carolina,
going to be
like what if
really,
it's
really good.
Carolina versus
Exactly.
Seattle, right? Like,
And
I,
even New Jersey, like I'm happy we preached Hughes. He's definitely their leader, but he's not like making an insane
yeah,
case. So
just something to keep in mind. Anyways, so that's Monday night, one game. And Tuesday we got a pair. Like I said, we're recording during Dallas and Seattle. At the moment, it looks like Seattle will go into that game with a 2-1 lead, and it will be played in the Pacific Northwest. But we'll start with Carolina and New Jersey. Boy, did I feel good about my 0-0 bet in game 3. Almost got there. Only the
hey, we
12
said
only the 12 goals.
we said play the first period under to position some profits. So
Yeah. Yeah.
won't lap, back and
Yeah,
feel
but
it.
is what it is. But yeah, it feels kind of like what we saw out of Carolina in round 1. Feels kind of what like we saw out of the Devils in round 1, where Carolina's best, our first like true poor performance in the series came after they go up 2-0 and leave Raleigh. The Devils, their best performance comes, or their first good performance comes after going down 0-2. It feels kind of simple to just say, like, is this what we expect out of these teams? Um, Now you got to wonder about Carolina's goaltending situation, but I also don't think it's that big a deal. Like, I truly don't care who's in goal for Carolina. I would almost say that if I would had like a Carolina to win the Stanley Cup ticket, I'd probably want Kochetkov in at this
Oh, for
point.
sure.
Yeah, and like
I thought 3-0 down today, you just put Kochetkov in and see.
right.
Because I think part of the problem is they don't want to put him in without playing in the
Yeah,
NHL
exactly.
forever. So I thought today was like you go down 3, first intermission, try him. I don't know if they were worried about completely shaking Anderson's confidence or what it was, but I feel like that was just one where it was like, this is a good spot to get him in a game and see how he looks and give ourselves kind of a chance to consider that option more. So I thought that was really interesting. minus 150. I kind of like the Devils here. I've had a pretty bad feel for this series. But I feel like I like what the Devils showed. It seems like it is kind of what you thought, where they're figuring it out as they go. The one thing that I love, he had some really, really good moments today. I feel like you know where I'm going with this. Luke Hughes, I talked about it. I said if they put him in, there's no chance he's going to do worse than some of these bottom defenders. He's just too good. Like we've seen this from all the NCAA guys. And I mean, he had one really bad turnover on the power play, but that was kind of a team wide thing considering it gave up 4 shorthanded goals. And I thought he was excellent. And one of the things that I think is really interesting is, so I think the common cliche is when you're playing like a Carolina that comes at you so fast and so hard on the forecheck is you want guys that constantly make this safe play. And I think sometimes people underthink that where, and it's not that Hughes was making such risky plays, but he would hold the puck and be slightly more passive or beat the first check and find a play. I thought there's some really good examples of that. And that's exactly what you want to see, where you're going to keep the puck and beat it that way, and as opposed to always trying glass and out, and then you're just feeding them because then they're so good coming back in the neutral zone too. So I thought he was excellent. I think he's going to give them a ton of upside moving forward, and that's like something to be really excited about. I'm just happy he got in too because I really wanted to watch him play this postseason. So I think that's definitely a fun note. I don't know if there's same kind of thing. It seems like value on this
Yeah,
game is,
maybe
debatable. But
Luke Hughes anytime goal scorer.
it's crazy too for as dead as the Devils looked after 2 games, which they got smoked. I did not think game 2 would look like that. I thought they were going to find a way to hang around. But they could win the East. Like they can beat Florida, I think.
Or Toronto.
Love their chances. Yeah, I mean, yeah, maybe. And
Uh,
then yeah,
the So that Hughes point is interesting because it's something that the Islanders almost preached, right? Was when they played Carolina, how they wanted to basically flip the almost alley oop as many times as they could out of their own zone because they didn't have the puck movers that the Devils have. And what their thoughts was, all right, you flip 20 pucks out of from your own red line a game, maybe 2 of them get misplayed and you can get an on man rush. And like they were
right.
playing
And I
those
think it's about
percentages,
reading it too, like
right?
as
Yeah.
with literally anything to do with hockey. But
But if you break, because if you can break that first player against Carolina, you catch them. Like you will catch them.
for sure, and
And
with the Devils forwards, like
right,
with the guys
exactly.
they've
So
got, if you're going to break out clean, then you're
yeah.
going to do some damage.
Yeah, I think the Devils are definitely still live. I wouldn't even like count them out down 3-1.
And the other thing, like I'll touch on quick. So first off, we talked about how the home teams are probably going to stabilize now after beating this drum. Just not because I just think it's 50-50. It's always been my case that it's closer to teams just being able to play on the road or at home, basically bringing the same game. What's going on with Carolina is kind of getting a little insane for like 4 postseasons in a row of like they can't play on the road and they're insane at home.
Except against the Islanders.
I can't decide if it's impressive or ridiculous because I'm like, can they really just not prepare to play on the road, or is the environment that crazy at home? Like, what is the combination here? They've got Rod. You'd think he's the type of guy that supposedly gets them prepared for these moments on the road,
I
and they
I,
just
I wonder
really
if
have
it's like
struggled.
like is it like just matchup? If I don't know.
That's true too. Yeah, I'd
Like
wonder
is
if
it like
someone
because
really.
they have like that stall line is so effective and he gets them out against the top dogs every chance he gets at home. It's absurd how many times I had to
And the
watch.
Slavin pairing too.
Exactly, right?
Game
So like
changer.
that tilt that just completely negates your best players more often than not. And unfortunately, the I think what is it? The Carolina they have 4 wins on the road in the postseason since 2009, and they made it every year, and all 4 of them would come against the Islanders, I believe. So that's there you go. It is insane though. But I will, the Islanders did get one down there, which was nice, although they had to survive it. But on to the other game Tuesday night, which is going to be Seattle and Dallas. Seattle's at 5-1 going into the third, so we can pretty safely assume that we will see the Kraken with a 2-1 lead. And Miro Heiskanen is hurt for Dallas. He took a puck to the face. Who knows, right? Like with they're down 5-1. They're not going to bring him back out for this game, I'd assume. So it's likely we'll see Seattle close as a little shorter than what they went off at today. Dallas was a road favorite. We keep talking about this Seattle team is always going to be live as an underdog. At what point, like, assuming Haskinen's in, at like what point does Seattle just become completely unappealing to you for this for this matchup? Because plus 120 I thought was a great number on Seattle tonight, and it's not going to be there, I don't think.
Yeah, I agree. I think that'll be one to watch. Heiskanen's status is huge for them. I love the Kraken. We haven't hidden it all year. That said, I'm already kicking myself for passing on them tonight. It felt like Dallas really just took over and figured it out in game 2. And who knows? I don't know if I'll end up with a side on this one, but I agree it's probably leaning towards Kraken with the numbers that'll come out. And then prop wise, I think Karche, keep your eye on him, goal for a goal. And then I think if Hintz is still minus 110 for 3 shots, that's just, you just keep playing that. It has to be played. He's killing it right now. I feel like he should be getting the Robertson lines right now for shots.
Yeah, when is Jason Robertson gonna start getting going here? He's the difference between me being in a great spot in a playoff pool and not. So we like it going. But anyways, yeah, I think like if it's where it closed again tonight, like plus 120, plus 115 is fine at Seattle, but anything lower than that I think is a little much. We're gonna record again on Tuesday night, so we'll just quickly touch on Wednesday. There will be 2 games on Wednesday, Vegas and Edmonton, and then we'll play after Toronto, Florida. The Panthers went up 3-0 in the series with an overtime win over Toronto. On Sunday night, the Leafs took a ton of money throughout the day before game 3, and I'm kicking myself for not just being like, we why at this point? I get that Toronto's the better team, but the number was stabilized, and then all of a sudden it shot up to like plus 135 on Florida, and I didn't play it. Instead, like a true genius, I went after the William Nylander stuff again.
Oh, don't even get me started on that. First off, I had someone comment and be like, how the hell are we back on Nylander again? I think if you put a clip together of all his touches today, he played the best quiet game you ever will have.
He set up that second goal was
no
him.
one gave him any service whatsoever. He had so many like solid little delays, and the defender would just fire muffins into the crest. I think if anyone helped him whatsoever, the one thing I was really like, I know that Matthews and Marner really weren't going. That was painfully obvious. I thought it would have made a lot of sense to try Nylander with Matthews. Like after the first, I thought that was really clear, and see if maybe that got something going. Because I really thought Nylander looked like he had his legs. I thought he had some good touches. I just think that
I mean, that second
like
goal
when I made those
him.
bets, I didn't count on Toronto getting dummied. That was what it came down to. Like I thought he would have some help, and he was the only one going at all out of the big guys. So
yeah, it was him. You're not going to win many games when you're deciding between your best forwards, David Kampf, Sam Lafferty, or William Nylander. Anyway, let's just quickly talk. We'll go more in depth about this game on our Tuesday episode. Panthers plus 105, plus 110 right now is what it looks like. And your opening thought here. First of all, like Ilya Samsonov, we don't know. That doesn't sound good. He got hurt. I don't think there's too much of a difference.
I know that's insane to
him
say.
And Joseph Woll, but like
Woll did fine.
Yeah, he was good, and he's been good, and like yeah, sure, you're a Leafs fan. Ideally, you'd want Ilya Samsonov in goal, but at the same time, you're down 3-0, so maybe like this is what you just needed a jolt or something. But I have a feeling you're gonna say what I was thinking, which is like if you want to play the Panthers, there's so much logic behind it, and But if you want to play the Leafs on this line, like just go big.
If
Bet
you're
them to win
betting the
this.
Leafs
Bet
as a
to win.
single in this game at minus 130, I don't know what the hell you're looking at.
Bet them to win the Stanley Cup if you're gonna bet them to do anything. Honestly, like what? Like they're gonna be reposted at some pretty big numbers here. So you're gonna get the biggest number you'll see on Toronto. You've seen on Toronto all the past 3 years, basically, to win the Stanley Cup. So
Yeah, and I honestly think plus 110 is such a good number here
they're
because it's just
25 to 1 to win the
this
Stanley
is
Cup.
such a hard game to win, like to me, and especially because Florida outplayed them tonight is the main reason. Like those first two games, I was still pumping up my Leafs because I was like, okay. I mean, I think anyone fair can make the case that at worst they should have had a split. Like they were painfully unlucky. And then tonight, as it wore along, they just had no juice. Florida had them figured out, and the top guys weren't going. Um, I mean, it's one of those things where I'm sitting here just in horror, being one of the only people who thought the Leafs would do something this year. It's an awful feeling. um,
Ovi
I have
thought
a
so
good
too.
friend who just went through a breakup, and he went on like a 10-day vacation in Mexico and was just like chilling and golfing and working out and stuff. And I honestly feel like that's where I'm at with being someone who thought this Leafs team would win this year. I just want to curl up in a hole and just, quit making content and call it a year.
It's
So
not over.
yeah, I
The fourth
mean,
one, you and I were both had our teams both coached by Barry Trotz. And Barry Trotz would remind both of us right now that the fourth one is the hardest one to win.
it is. And I agree. Like, if I was going to be positive, that's where I'd say, like, but that's why you would never bet Toronto as a single
Right. Yeah.
as a favorite in this game. You just wouldn't because it's the hardest
I,
one to like.
they're
This one's probably the
25 to 1. I'm
hardest to
seeing out
win.
there to win the Stanley Cup. And
That is not playable.
no, I know, but it's like if you're gonna play anything, I just would do that. It's not. I don't think the true odds are higher than that. But
I don't even know what the hell to say about them. That was the most I've been disappointed, where it was just like, what are you doing? Like, it was so the final two periods, I was just disgusted.
perfect
Just
note to end this one on. All right, we'll be back Tuesday night to go deeper into that and give you a chance to breathe. Maybe you'll be in Mexico, golfing and working out and doing this, and then we'll figure out some more bets. But for now, that's all we got. So best of luck with all your bets on Monday and Tuesday. We'll see you again Wednesday morning. For Nick Martin, I'm Michael Leboff. Thank you to our sponsors, BetMGM. This has been Line Change.